Wherever you're from, wherever you are. Welcome to What's the Word? How are you? We're doing a punishment session this time because we need Jesus. These children need Jesus. They need to learn. And they've been making some really, really bad choices. So we just got out of school and we're sitting over here at the park. We're at a different park. It's rainy and gloomy. So what better day to do our show than now? Yay! Get to do it with the babies. They get to hear me read. And today's a great one because it's trust God to put things right. And when they're making bad decisions, I'm going to trust God is going to make it right. And they are going to obey and listen and be good. So we have trust God to put things right. Peppa and I enjoy doing crosswords together. I like crosswords too. They're pretty fun.
Peppa?
Yeah. Peppa Pig. He likes Peppa Pig. When we are stuck on a clue, we don't give up. We move on to the next clue. Every time we find an answer, it helps us resolving some of the other clues. In the end, we are sometimes able to solve most of the puzzle. In a way, reading some of the difficult parts of the Bible is like trying to solve a crossword puzzle. Rather than getting bogged down in a tricky section, you can use the passages you do understand to help you resolve some of the more difficult ones. Often, I find it hard not only to understand some of the difficult passages in the Bible, but also to understand why certain things are happening in our world. There seems to be so much injustice. There's no easy answers. I love the second great rhetorical question from yesterday's passage. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? One thing you can be sure about is that on the last day, when all is revealed, you will see God's perfect judgment. And everyone will say, that is absolutely right. Each of today's passages tells us something about the fact that in the end, God will put things right. Psalms chapter 7, verses 1 through 9. Trust that there will be a just judgment. Some people might think that belief in a God who judges would lead to more violence in the world today. In fact, it is the opposite. When people stop believing in God's just judgment, they may be tempted to take it into their own hands and seek revenge against their enemies. David trusted that there will be judgment, that God will be the judge, and he will judge justly. Say that 10 times fast. That God will be the judge, and he will judge justly. My accusers have packed the courtroom. It's judgment time. Take your place on the bench. Reach for your gavel. Throw out the false charges against me. I am ready, confident in your verdict. In other words, David trusted that God would deal with his enemies. If you believe in God, who is going to execute judgment with the perfect justice, then you can leave it in the hands and do what Jesus told you to do. Love your enemies. See Matthew and Luke. In fact, as Marcelo Wolf put it, the practice of non-violence requires a belief in divine vengeance. So many of the world's problems today would be solved if people believed in the fact that there is a God who judges justly and that we can trust him to put things right in the end. Lord, I take refuge in you. Thank you that as I can be confident in your perfect judgment, I need never seek revenge, but rather love my enemies and pray for those who persecute me. In Matthew, trust in Jesus, to whom God has entrusted all judgment. Jesus knew all about building houses. That's what we're doing. Jesus knew all about building houses. He was a craftsman by trade, and he worked as a carpenter. The illustration he uses is down to earth and practical. Two men who each decide to build a house. No doubt that they intended to live in and enjoy them. Perhaps with their families. Both were building something of a long-lasting significance. Our lives are like these houses, yet their significance is for all eternity. The most important feature of any house, what is it? The foundation. The most important feature of any house is its foundations. These houses differented a little in appearance, but only one had its foundation on rock. Similarly, two lives can look alike, but the difference is the foundations of the evident when inevitably the storms of life come. You will face challenges in life. They will come in many forms: misunderstanding, disappointments, unfulfilling longings, doubts, trials, temptations, setbacks, satanic attacks. Success, too, can be a test. There's also There's also pressure, suffering, sickness, bereavement, sorrow, trauma, tragedy, persecution, and failure. Ultimately, all of us will face death and God's judgment. The image of rain, torrents, winds is used in Ezekiel to refer to God's judgment. That's why I like rain, because it's like rain. It's cleaning everything. This is the best time to repent, clean, wash all the nasty away. But the language of judgment is not confirmed in the Old Testament. Here and elsewhere, Jesus warns of the coming judgment, as do the other New Testament writers. When the rain came down, the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against that house. The house built on rock did not fall, but the one built on the sand fell with a great crash. These are solemn words of warning. The trial may be during life, or it may come at the end of judgment. What is certain, according to Jesus, is that it will come. However, you need not live in fear. It is not easy, but there is a way to be sure that when the foundations of your house are tested, they stay firm. It is possible to know that your future is secure. Jesus tells us that the key difference is that the wise man not only hears the words of Jesus, but also puts them into practice. The foolish man, on the other hand, although he hears Jesus' words, does not put them into practice. Knowledge must lead to action, or theology must affect our lives, and else we are building our lives on sand. The words of Jesus are, first of all, a call to believe in him. Our salvation is by faith in Jesus, lived out in obedience. You can have absolute confidence in Jesus' judgment because he has the authority of God himself. Jesus was amazed at the centuries centurion's faith in him. He said, "Truly, I tell you, I've not found anyone in Israel with such great faith." The evidence for this faith came because the centurion believed that Jesus' words alone was sufficient to heal his servant. Not even himself. He believed that Jesus, not even himself, his servant, to heal his servant, his friend, his brother, his rationale for believing this is profound. The centurion recognized that, as in the army, authority comes from being under authority. So Jesus' authority came from being under the authority of his Father. The centurion, I can't say that word, saw that when Jesus spoke, God spoke. Furthermore, this perfect judgment is not aloof from human suffering. We know Jesus experienced injustice, imprisonment, torture, and crucifixion. But in this passage, we see that he also experienced homelessness and bore the weight of our sicknesses and suffered on the cross. There's little human suffering that Jesus himself did not experience. Father, thank you that not only is Jesus able to sympathize with my weakness, but he also died for my sins, bearing the judgment for me so that I need not be afraid. In Genesis chapter 19 and 20, trust that in the end, the judge of all the earth will do right. God was going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Did you know that God breaks promises too? I just learned that today. If you want to know the promise that God broke, read Jonah. He was going to destroy the city of Nineveh, but because the king and all the people believed Jonah's words, they repented and God saved them, and he broke his promise to destroying them. He didn't destroy them. That's awesome. So God was going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, more cities of evil destruction. We do not know exactly what their sin was, but the Lord said the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great that their sin is so great and their sin is so grievous. It appears from today's passage that their sin includes a horrific culture of group rape. We read in Ezekiel 16 that their sin also included being arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned, that they did not help their peer, the poor or the needy. They did not help the poor or the needy. They were unconcerned and didn't help the poor or the needy. In Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49. This would be a description of our own society in the West. God says that if there had been 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, he would have spared it for their sake. For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. He gave every opportunity for the only righteous people to leave. When Lot hesitated, the angel grasped his hands and the hands of his wife and his 2 daughters and led them to safety out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. The judgment on Lot's wife seems very severe. Whatever the reasons for it, and I'm not confident I know the answers, neither do I, it certainly stands as an example. Jesus said, remember Lot's wife. We are to not look back. If we have left a life of sin, then we must not turn back to it. They were told, flee from your lives. Members, you guys don't know, but we haven't got there yet. Lot's wife, they said, don't look back or you're going to be turned to stone. She turned back and she was turned to stone. That's sad. She didn't die. She was turned to a statue. In this way, we are told to flee from evil desires. Even Abraham was not without sin, and indeed he repeated the same sin over and over again, trying to pass off Sarah as his sister and almost causing her to commit adultery. The message of the Bible is that not only does God save sinners, he also uses sinners. He blesses Abraham and answers his prayer. God uses us despite our sin because he is merciful, and God in Jesus has taken the judgment upon himself. Lord, thank you so much for the difference the cross of Christ makes to the day of judgment. Thank you that I can be confident that in the end, the judgment of all the earth will do right. The judge of all the earth, sorry. Be confident that in the end, the judge of all the earth will do right. And then Peppa adds, Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. The centurion cared not just for his family and friends. He's not for himself or his thing, but also for someone who worked for him. Even though the centurion was outside and not part of the religious community, he went looking for Jesus. Faith can be found in all sorts of unusual places.
Behind you.
So excited. All right, friends, that was our devotional day 9. Awesome. We're going to get into chapter 9, and I hope you enjoyed your time with me as much as I enjoyed my time with you. We love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.